Imagine for a second, just, picture it. A 20-something athlete slips on some wet grass and accidentally kicks a leather ball a few feet out of bounds.
Right, just a totally mundane, harmless mistake.
Exactly. But to describe that one little mistake, modern media commentators will deploy a word that was originally meant to describe, like, this ancient, terrifying belief that the planets have literally aligned against humanity to rain down cosmic destruction.
Which is just wild.
I mean, it is. They act like the stars themselves have cursed this guy.
It sounds utterly absurd when you frame it that way. You're taking, the most average human error and elevating it to a mythological catastrophe.
Yeah.
But that disparity between what actually happens in reality and the catastrophic language used to describe it, well, that's basically the foundation of how we consume information today.
And there is literally no better real-time laboratory to study this than what is unfolding across the globe right now.
Oh, absolutely.
Because today is July 12th, 2026. The world is completely gripped by the FIFA World Cup, and England has just successfully marched into the semifinals.
It's a massive cultural moment.
It really is.
Yeah.
But we aren't here today in this deep dive to talk about formations or goals or, who might actually lift the trophy.
No, definitely not.
We have this really fascinating stack of analytical text in front of us today. They break down the specific language used by major English media outlets. So networks like the BBC, Sky Sports, publications like The Guardian, ESPN, to cover this tournament.
Yeah, and the source material focuses intensely on how these outlets have essentially, well, they've abandoned descriptive reporting.
Right.
The text isolates two specific buzzwords that have just entirely consumed the coverage. Pundits and journalists are pushing these terms to their absolute limits to evaluate, everything, from individual player performances to England's overall destiny.
Okay, let's unpack this. Our mission today is to decode the two biggest buzzwords of the 2026 World Cup, Masterclass and Disasterclass.
Right.
By digging into these terms, we're going to explore how modern media constructs extreme, polarized narratives. Basically, it's specifically designed to capture our attention.
Yeah, we're looking at what these two words reveal about media manipulation, historical trauma, and just the mechanics of our modern viral culture.
Exactly.
Which makes this incredibly relevant to you, the listener, regardless of your interest in football. Even if you have never watched a single match in your life.
Right, you still see this everywhere.
Exactly. Understanding how these two terms function is, well, it's essentially a masterclass, pun intended, in recognizing how modern media feeds you extreme narratives.
Yeah.
The tactics used to keep you clicking, scrolling, and reacting to sports coverage. They are the exact same tactics used in political coverage, financial news, cultural commentary.
All the same playbook.
It really is. It's a master key to understanding how language shapes the reality you see on your screen.
So, to understand how the media polarizes us, the text suggests we first have to look at the extreme literal origins of the words they rely on.
Oh, the etymology here tells a massive story on its own.
It really does. Let's start by looking at the negative end of the spectrum because it sets up the entire dynamic. The word Disasterclass is seemingly everywhere right now.
It is the ultimate internet-era portmanteau. It fuses the suffix of masterclass with the word disaster.
Right.
But the roots of disaster are incredibly theatrical. It comes from the Italian word disastro. And if you translate that literally, it means an ill-starred event or, bad star.
Are they literally bad stars?
Yeah. You have the pejorative prefix dis, meaning bad, and astro, meaning star.
Bad stars. That's crazy.
It stems from the ancient astrological belief that unfavorable alignments of the planets and stars literally brought about worldly destruction.
Wow.
We are talking about plagues, earthquakes, the total ruin of civilizations. The implication is that forces completely beyond human control have doomed you to a catastrophic fate.
That is quite the heavy baggage to apply to, like, a missed penalty kick.
Right.
You take a term rooted in ancient cosmic destruction, and you just weaponize it against a sweating, exhausted athlete on a muddy pitch.
Exactly.
But looking at the other side, Masterclass isn't exactly a natural fit for sports either, is it?
Not historically, no. The word master originates from the Latin magister, which means a chief or a teacher.
Okay.
And in Middle English, it evolved to represent a person of supreme skill in a specific craft. Then class stems from the Latin classis, which originally referred to a division or fleet of citizens, eventually evolving into like a course of study.
So you combine those, and you get a lesson given to advanced students by an undisputed expert.
Exactly. Throughout the 20th century, a masterclass was almost exclusively the domain of the fine arts.
Oh, right, like you'd have a Chopin piano masterclass.
Yes. Or a classical vocal masterclass, maybe oil painting. It evokes this image of a hushed room, a brilliant maestro, and highly refined culture.
And now it's being used for a guy kicking a ball really well.
Yeah. Driven by modern English football media and internet meme culture, that refined definition has been completely co-opted.
Totally.
When a player or a manager delivers a near-flawless display of technique or tactical intelligence today, the media instantly labels it a tactical masterclass.
Right, which implies something specific.
Yeah, the underlying implication here is that they aren't merely defeating their opponents, they are literally schooling them.
Oh, right.
The pitch becomes a classroom, and the opponent is reduced to the status of a helpless, inferior student.
I mean, I get that. But I have to push back a little on the, sinister undertones here.
Sure.
Language changes all the time, right?
Yeah.
People find clever new ways to describe things they're excited about. Why should we view this as a deliberate media tactic to construct a polarized narrative rather than just, natural, organic, linguistic evolution? Slang happens.
What's fascinating here is that Disasterclass provides the exact counterweight that proves this isn't just organic slang.
So.
It is an engineered irony. The text points out that Disasterclass, meaning a catastrophic, error-riddled performance, was born strictly out of the internet and sports media era, specifically to mock hyper-expensive star players.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, when a multimillionaire athlete commits an amateur blunder, declaring it a disaster class is a master class in how not to play. It elevates a simple human error into an epic, cosmic failure. It's deliberate escalation.
Ah, okay. I see the distinction. It's not just a descriptive new word. It's a tool for driving extremes.
Exactly.
Because language doesn't evolve in a vacuum. These extreme words, schooling your opponent like a grand maestro or being doomed by the cosmos, they caught on because they perfectly fit a pre-existing, highly polarized media ecosystem.
Oh, 100%.
And according to the source material, there was almost no media ecosystem on Earth more volatile than the English football press.
The British tabloids, alongside the major broadcast networks, are globally notorious for operating on a knife edge.
Yeah, the text refers to this dynamic as England's polarized history.
Right.
The media essentially functions as a massive pendulum, swinging violently between framing the national team as undisputed favorites who are destined for glory, or as doomed tragic protagonists destined to humiliate the nation.
It's exhausting just watching it happen.
It is, which introduces, a chicken and egg scenario for me. Are outlets like The Sun or the Daily Mail or even the BBC just reflecting the natural, deep-seated anxiety of the fans?
Right, like the fans are terrified of losing, so the media writes nervous, hyperbolic headlines to match their mood.
Exactly. Or are these media outlets deliberately creating this bipolar pendulum because extreme emotional narratives simply sell more papers and generate more digital engagement?
Well, it is a symbiotic relationship, undoubtedly, but the media corporations actively fuel and accelerate the polarization to maximize their profit.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The text highlights what it calls the shadow of historical disaster classes. You cannot understand the language being used in 2026 without understanding the historical trauma of the English national team on the world stage.
Oh, the trauma is deep.
So deep. They have a multi-decade history of delivering high-profile, agonizing failures that the media has meticulously documented and just branded into the national psyche.
Yeah, the sources explicitly cite the infamous red cards, like David Beckham in 1998 against Argentina.
Whoa, that was huge.
And Wayne Rooney in 2006 against Portugal.
Yeah.
And when you look back at how the media handled those moments, those weren't covered as mere sporting losses.
Not at all.
They were covered as national mourning events, or rather, national tribunals. The players were vilified, they had effigies hung, they were subjected to relentless tabloid persecution.
And that creates a deeply traumatized fan base.
Right.
Because of those historical, visceral moments, the media and the fans are incredibly eager, almost primed to dissect a failure. They are perpetually waiting for the other shoe to drop.
So they're just waiting for the next disaster.
Exactly. The word disaster class is so potent because it is perfectly suited for a media landscape that is always anticipating the next great collapse. It validates the underlying dread. It tells the fan, you were right to be afraid. The cosmos really are against us.
But then we look at what is happening right now in the 2026 World Cup. England has made this incredibly deep run into the semifinals, and it has violently flipped that established script.
Yeah, they haven't collapsed.
No. They have found their rhythm. They have ground out crucial, stressful victories.
Right.
And instead of the media taking, a measured, balanced approach to their success, acknowledging the flaws but praising the resilience, the pendulum just smashed all the way to the absolute opposite side.
It really did. The tone of the press swung aggressively toward unadulterated adulation. The deep-seated anxiety was instantly replaced by widespread declarations of masterclass displays.
It's whiplash.
It is. The trauma primed them for disaster, but the victory demanded they swing equally hard in the opposite direction to release that tension.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Looking at this dynamic from a psychological perspective, there is absolutely no middle ground permitted in this media coverage.
None.
You are either a tragic villain who has committed a cosmic, ill-starred disaster class, or you are the flawless hero, the genius putting on a masterclass. You are either a god or a complete failure.
Which brings us to the actual mechanics of how this polarized narrative is deployed in real time.
Right.
We've explored the history and the etymological roots, but how are these hyperpolarized words weaponized in modern headlines to farm engagement from that traumatized fan base?
Let's look at the anatomy of these headlines, because the sources provide some specific, fascinating examples of the phrasing being used across major networks right now.
Yeah, let's break them down.
It is incredibly revealing when you look closely at the adjectives and verbs attached to these buzzwords.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you can see how the media isolates different targets to build different extreme narratives.
Okay.
Let's start with managers and their tactics. A typical headline highlighted in the text reads, "A tactical masterclass blindsides the opposition."
Blindsides. That word stands out immediately.
It does.
It sounds like a military ambush, or a predator taking down prey. It frames the manager not just as a coach, but as, like, a grandmaster playing an entirely different game, a 4D chess match that the opponent couldn't even comprehend.
And that framing reflects the English media's absolute obsession with tactical genius versus utter incompetence.
Right, there's no in-between.
Exactly. But the underlying psyche here is the rapid shift between awe and severe scrutiny. By setting the standard at a tactical masterclass, the media sets an impossible benchmark.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah, if that exact same tactic had failed by a margin of 1 inch, the headline would just as quickly read, "A tactical disaster class leaves the team exposed."
Wow.
The binary leaves no room for the reality that, hey, maybe a tactic was good, but the opponent just got lucky.
Yeah. Then the text moves on to how they cover the star players. The headline example provided is, "A midfield masterclass keeps the dream alive." Again, it's not just a good game. It's a religious salvation keeping a collective dream from dying.
This is where modern English media elevates standout performers into those literal instructors we discussed with the Latin etymology.
Right, the magister.
Exactly. They are putting on a clinic. It feeds the narrative of the singular hero carrying the nation's hopes on their shoulders.
Which is a lot of pressure.
It isolates the individual from the team sport, creating a highly marketable protagonist.
But the truly insidious part is how this binary language handles the flubs, right? The mistakes.
Oh, definitely.
This is where the tabloid culture really shows its teeth. The source text gives the example. The defender dropped an absolute disaster class in the second half.
Yeah.
When I read that, it struck me that it's no longer just a critique of a bad pass. It's an invitation to a public execution.
That is perhaps the most revealing application of this language. It highlights the relentless online and tabloid culture of amplifying any low-level blunder for viral engagement. A missed tackle is no longer just a mistake. It is an absolute disaster class. By appending the word absolute, the media invites the audience to mock, to share, to participate in the vilification.
It turns a human error into a highly shareable viral product.
Exactly.
It honestly sounds exhausting to consume. So what does this all mean for the reader? We have to look at the mechanics of why these specific words dominate.
Right.
We are living in a constructed media reality where every single pass, every managerial substitution, every split-second decision is framed as either a sign of transcendent brilliance or catastrophic ruin.
And they aren't doing this just because it's fun to say.
Yeah.
This is fundamentally about algorithmic mechanics. The modern media ecosystem is entirely dictated by algorithmic reward systems
which we talk about a lot.
because it's so central. Social media platforms and news aggregators, they do not prioritize chronological news or balanced analysis. They prioritize engagement, which is driven by high-arousal emotions.
Right, the algorithms essentially demand extreme polarization.
Exactly.
A headline that reads, "Defender has a statistically average game but makes one notable error, generates zero high-arousal emotion."
Nobody clicks that.
No. It gets no retweets, no angry quote tweets, no furious comments. The algorithm just buries it.
Yeah.
But if you call it an absolute disaster class, you trigger outrage, mockery, and defensive tribalism.
The algorithm is an engine that runs on awe and anger. Masterclass feeds the awe, and Disasterclass feeds the anger.
That is such a good way to put it.
And the middle ground, the space where nuance, context, and normal human behavior actually live, is intentionally deleted because it cannot be monetized by the algorithm.
This raises an important question for anyone consuming modern media. The text concludes that the omnipresence of these two words perfectly captures the bipolar nature of English football culture, perpetually oscillating between supreme arrogance and existential dread.
Right.
But you have to ask yourself how much this mirrors broader media trends today, because this isn't just about sports.
Not at all. If you step back, you see this exact same linguistic framework applied everywhere.
Everywhere.
It dictates how political debates are framed. Someone either delivered a master class in debate or an absolute disaster class of a speech.
Yep, you see that every day.
It dictates how corporate earnings are discussed, how celebrity behavior is analyzed, how new technology is reviewed. The extreme narratives constructed around the 2026 World Cup are just the most visible, concentrated example of the reality we all navigate every day.
So, to sort of summarize what we've unpacked today, these two words, masterclass and disasterclass, aren't just fun, organic internet slang.
No.
They are perfectly engineered linguistic tools.
Yeah.
Global media outlets use them to narrate dramatic spectacles by entirely erasing nuance.
Right.
They tap into ancient concepts of undisputed mastery and cosmic doom, and they leverage historical trauma to trigger the high-arousal emotions that algorithms demand, all to keep you glued to the screen.
They are mechanisms for storytelling that thrive purely on polarization. They force you to view the world in absolutes.
So, as you are scrolling through your own news feeds today, whether you are reading the latest analysis on the World Cup semifinals, trying to understand a political debate, or just, looking at a movie review, keep an active eye out for these polarizing binaries.
Definitely.
Notice when you are being explicitly told that something is a flawless masterpiece or an unmitigated cosmically doomed disaster. And when you see those extremes, ask yourself what critical nuance is being purposefully left out of the story to get you to click.
And I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over, building on this idea of linguistic evolution and the algorithmic amplification of our blunders.
Okay, let's hear it.
If our modern media language for success and failure continues to be this astronomically binary where you are either a flawless master or you are doomed by bad stars, do we eventually lose the cultural capacity to accept normal, average human error? If every single mistake a person makes in the public eye is immediately framed as a disaster class, is there any room left in the world for just being okay? For trying your best, failing slightly, and moving on without it being a defining catastrophe?
Or for just being human. We started this deep dive talking about the expectation of precision in how we describe the world. But it turns out modern media traded the scalpel for a sledgehammer a long time ago.
Yeah, they really did.
And suddenly, we're all just trying to navigate this polarized landscape, hoping the algorithm doesn't decide we've dropped a disaster class in our own lives.